Hello everyone, I'm Ankit and you're watching StudyIQ IAS English. In our today's video, we'll try to understand the new UGC regulations, why these regulations have proven to be controversial and why has it led to protests across the country. This is what we are going to understand. Now the notes which I will be using in this today's lecture, in case if you want to download them, you can go to a particular Telegram channel called as ATS Live. And while you're at it, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel as well. So let us understand where we're covering this particular regulation in our today's video. Now, what happened? That is 2 weeks ago on January the 13th, the University Grants Commission, which is the regulator of higher education sector in India, it brought regulations. Now, the purpose of these regulations were to deal with discrimination that happens across the colleges in the country, and particularly the discrimination which pertains to caste-based discrimination. Now, after these regulations were made public, you have to understand these regulations replaces the 2012 initial regulations that were brought by UGC. Now, after these regulations were made public, it led to a significant backlash on social media. If you see on the platform X, a hashtag UGC rollback has been made popular. Now, the reason why these kind of hashtags are being made popular on social media is that many people feel that these regulations in a way are unfair to the students who belong to general category, and also that it creates caste-based divisions for political gain, particularly to give benefits to people belonging to the other backward classes community. So is it true, the allegations that are made on social media? That is what we are here to answer. Okay, so first let us start by understanding what are these new UGC equity regulations. Now, University Grant Commission on January the 13th, as I already said, it notified UGC Promotion of Equity in Higher Education Institutions Regulation 2026. Now, the stated purpose or the objective of these regulation is to eradicate discrimination in higher education institutions on the basis of caste, religion, gender, place of birth, as well as disability. Now, what you need to understand, the focus of these regulations is particularly to deal with discrimination which happens against scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, as well as other backward classes communities. Okay. Now, why were these regulations introduced in the first place? You need to understand this was not done entirely on the executive volition. Rather, the trigger of these regulations were due to judicial orders. Now, in 2019, a petition was filed in the Supreme Court of India by parents of Rohit Vemula and Payal Tadvi, and both of these students actually died by suicide after they alleged that they had faced caste-based discrimination on the colleges. Now, hearing this matter, the Supreme Court was of the opinion, which was led by justices presently, who is one of the Chief Justices of India, and Ujjwal Bhuyan. They held that these 2012 regulation I'm talking about, they need to be effective, and rather the 2012 regulations were merely symbolic. So it did not have the impact which was the original purpose of UGC. So Supreme Court in a way nudged the government to bring a stricter regulation that would deal with any discrimination that happens on the campus on the lines of caste, religion, gender, place of birth, as well as disability. And as I've told you, the main emphasis of these regulations is to prevent caste-based discrimination that happens in the colleges in India. Now, how will this regulation be implemented? There is a 3-layer structure that would implement these regulations. First is an equal opportunity center that needs to be mandatorily set up in every higher education institution. The purpose of this equal opportunity center would be to oversee quality or equity policies. It would coordinate with law enforcement agencies as well as the district administration. Similarly, it will also facilitate legal help or aid in case if it is needed. Now, the composition of this center would include 5 faculty members of the colleges, but there is no reservation mandated in the composition. And if a college lacks 5 number of faculties, then they would be under the university under which the college particularly functions. So the university EOC would be responsible in case the college is not able to find 5 faculties to man this equal opportunity center. So this is the first layer. Now, the second and probably the most important layer is the equity committee. Now, every college would have a 10-member equity committee which would function under the Equal Opportunity Center. Now, this committee would be headed by the head of institution, and the committee would also have mandatory representation from members belonging to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBC, women, as well as persons with disability. Now, the purpose of this committee is to ensure time-bound addressal of the grievances that may occur in the colleges. Now, the complaint, if it were to be made to this equity committee, would be taken up within 24 hours. There would be the report which will be curated for this complaint, and this should be submitted within 15 days, and the institutional head must act on the report within 7 days. So as you can understand, this second layer, that is equity committee, ensures time-bound redressal of grievances. Now, the third layer in this cog is what is called as equity squads and helpline. There would be an equity squads in the college which would maintain vigil on the campus, and it would also monitor the vulnerable spots in the campus so that no discrimination happens. Similarly, in case if some student faces discrimination, they can also take help of a 24-hour equity helpline. Similarly, there would also be equity ambassadors who would be appointed to promote awareness and inclusion in the campus. And as you can understand, these three-layer structure that I've already told you ensures proactive surveillance, ensures that no discrimination is happening in the college, and in case discrimination actually happens, this addresses the grievances through a mechanism that is designed for time-bound redressal. Understood? So this is how this regulation would be implemented in every college. Now, what you have to understand that these 2026 regulation are in a way stricter than the earlier 2012 regulation. As you can understand, the 2012 regulation was mere advisory in nature. On the other hand, the 2026 regulation is binding in nature. So in terms of enforcement, 2026 has a more weight. Similarly, the UGC National Monitoring Committee would monitor the working of these grievance cells in each and every college, and in case the college is unable to adhere to these regulations, actions can be taken against them by UGC. These actions may be denial of grants, denial of funding based on the schemes by UGC, and in case if the college still persists with the discrimination, they can also be denied the right to give degrees to their students. So that is why the explicit inclusion of OBC, the monitoring mechanism, which is time-bound and structured in a three-layer it ensures that no discrimination happens. It ensures that every college pays adhere to the directions given by UGC, and in case if they do not adhere to the directions of UGC, actions can be taken against them. So that is why I told you 2026 regulation are in a way more stricter, more comprehensive in comparison to the 2012 regulation. Now, the controversy has been created because of the changes in the draft which was introduced earlier and the final version which was introduced in 2026. Now, before any regulations are made final, government usually has a process of legislative reiteration. So what happens that government initially publishes a draft and invites public consultation on that draft. And based on the consultation, it finalizes any regulation. Same thing happened even with this equity regulations. So when the draft was introduced last year in 2025, it did not include the OBC community from the definition of caste-based discrimination. So when members of OBC protested, when Parliamentary Standing Committee raised this request, now in the definition of caste-based discrimination, OBCs are included, and even in equity committee, there would be a mandatory representation from a member of other backward classes, right? So this is what has been included, which was not there in the draft, and it has been included in the final regulation. Similarly, there is something that has been removed from the draft when the final regulation came, and this is the heart of controversy. What you need to understand, in the draft, there was a clause on penalties for false complaints, and this allowed for disciplinary action in case a student alleges incorrectly the discrimination on any ground. Now the final version, it removes this entirely, and this is what I told you is the heart of the controversy. So in this regard, let us understand what is this controversy all about. First controversy is that when a student makes a frivolous or a fake complaint on the allegations of discrimination, there is no penalty that would be imposed on him. And this also creates a chance that this can be misused to harass a person with whom you personally disagree with, right? And institutions, even if they know, as has been highlighted by the education minister, if the institutions know that some complaint has been made on frivolous grounds, they can deny taking the action. But if you can understand, these regulations can ensure that the institutions will punish if any irregularity, any complaint remains unaddressed. second ground of protest is there is no distinction when it comes to explicit and implicit discrimination. Now, when it comes to explicit discrimination, which can be done by gestures, which can be done by your speech, which can be done by your action, that's something everybody agrees on, and this happens across the campus. Now, when it comes to implicit discrimination, you need to understand by the virtue of it, implicit discrimination remains a very subjective concept, right? So if I consider, is every caste-based joke or a label always discriminatory? So if there is no definition of what is implicit discrimination, anybody can interpret even a normal caste-based joke as a discriminatory joke, right? Similarly, and this discrimination can also happen against member of any caste, right? It does not have to be against a member of SC, ST or OBC. It can happen even with the general category students. So if you're discriminating any kind of campus or any kind of caste-based jokes, why exclude one community out of it and why include one community inside it? Similarly, this kind of regulation does not create any distinction between free speech and harassment. As you can understand, free speech is covered in our constitution, in our Article 19, which gives everybody the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. And if you are going to curb each and every speech under the pretext of caste-based discrimination, this would create what is known as social chilling effect. What is a social chilling effect? I might want to express my opinion, but just under the threat that somebody can impose a complaint against me for caste-based discrimination, I won't give that speech. I won't express my what I understand, right? So this is what creates a social chilling effect, and this is ultimately dangerous to the concept of free speech and democracy. So this is the second problem, that it creates ambiguity in definition, which might lead to curbing down of speech by individuals in form of social chilling effect. Similarly, as I told you, the definition of who can be discriminated against, it only includes member from scheduled caste, scheduled tribes as well as OBC when it comes to caste-based discrimination. But by the virtue of it, you can understand, even if you pass a caste-based comment against a member of general category, you won't be punished for this kind of regulations, right? So this excludes within the definition of caste-based discrimination members of general community, which can happen with anyone. Also, the committee composition, if you can look at it, it mandatorily reserves the reserve category representation. So many people feel that these people, if they are there in the community, they might be biased. It won't ensure that the justices would be delivered or principles of justice would be adhered to if it does not have wider representation. Right? So these are the matters in which controversy has happened. According to me, the most controversial aspect was exclusion of penalty for false complaints and keeping ambiguity when it comes to definition of the implicit discrimination. Right? Now, before we end our today's discussion, there is a very important announcement. Our resolution batches, the offer that we were giving have been extended, but to make deals sweeter, we have added one separate component to it. Suppose if you take admissions right now, you obviously would get 77% off on all courses as was promised during the Republic Day. But now to offer a sweeter deal, we are also offering double validity. So suppose earlier if you were to take a course which had a validity of 30 months, now the same course would be available with double validity, that is 60 months. So theoretically, with the same course that you take at a discounted rate, you can watch classes, watch recorded lectures, you can give mock tests for double the amount of time. So these are the benefits that are provided to students who take admissions in resolution batches. And resolution batches, the January morning batch have started yesterday, that was 27th of January, and this particular offer that has started today will end on 31st of January. Please understand, there are two separate batches, one for students who are targeting to give their exams in 2027 and another one is for students who are looking to give exams in 2028. To take admissions and to get all the benefits that I've told you, please take admissions as soon as possible, and if you apply the code ATS Live, you are going to get even more discounts, right? So do not forget, if you learn or if you want to thrive, you need to use the code ATS Live. And before we end, there are two PYQs that are exactly on the discussion that we had. Which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporates protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination? This one is an easy question. Please do let me know the correct answer in the comment section. And one more question which appeared in 2017. One of the implications of equality in society is the absence of what? This is a conceptual question relating to polity. But from our today's discussion, you can safely answer this question. And if you have any doubts, please do let me know in the comment section. And also about these regulations, what do you feel about my opinion? I told you, if there is a caste-based discrimination in the campus, don't you think it should cover any discrimination, not just discrimination against one or certain sections of people, right? Do you agree with my idea? Please do let me know in the comments, okay? And this is all for today's discussion. Please, if you want to download the notes, this is where you'd find it. The channel's name is ETS Live, and you can also scan the QR code to download the notes. So this is all from my side. Please have a very good day and wish you all a very good night.